Imagine if XRP's low price is not an accident at all, but actually part of a secret plan. Some insiders say that big banks, they are keeping XRP under $3 on purpose. And if that is true, well, the end game could be explosive for holders like us. So, let me tell you a story. A few days ago, I came across an interview with a guy named Dr. Jim Willie. Now, Dr. Willie here is a financial analyst, a big brain numbers guy with a PhD in statistics, and he dropped a bit of a bombshell claim. He said some of the biggest banks that are out there, and even a massive private equity firm, have been intentionally holding XRP's price down. He even name-dropped Bank of America and Bank of New York Mellon, saying that they're quietly working to keep XRP under $3. Now, why on earth would they do that? Well, according to this guy, it's so that they can buy a whole ton of XRP on the cheap before it eventually shoots up in value. Now, I know that it sounds like one of those wild crypto conspiracy theories. At first, I was skeptical too. But then Willie started rattling off details that made me sit up straight and pay attention. He suggested that these banks might actually be coordinating with Ripple, yes, the company that is behind XRP, to pull all of this off. He basically described a scene where the banks tell Ripple, help us out here, keep XRP under $3 for now. We don't want to be buying at $7 or $8, which is where it should be right now. I mean, just imagine that for a second then. The same big institutions that used to dismiss crypto or even fight against it could be begging a crypto company to help them keep prices low so that they can quietly load their bags. It's like something out of a financial thriller. Okay, so let's think about it. If you knew an asset was going to be huge, then you would probably want to grab it at bargain prices, right? It's kind of like trying to buy a stock at $10 when you believe that it's going to be $50 a little bit further down the road. Now, these banks apparently want an XRP fire sale while they secretly accumulate. And Willie says that it's not just talk. He points to some pretty curious evidence. Now, for one, exchange wallets holding XRP have been shrinking big time. Case in point, Coinbase reportedly had almost 1 billion XRP sitting on their exchange, and by September, that number had dropped to around 32 million. Now that's not a typo, right? Nearly 1 billion tokens down to 32 million tokens. Where the heck did all of the XRP go? It didn't just evaporate, did it? No. Woody's theory is that it's actually being pulled off public exchanges and moved into private custody or institutional accounts, away from our prying eyes. He also mentioned non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, potentially being in play. Basically, he suspects that a lot of these exchanges or parties cannot talk about what's happening because they're legally barred from doing so. So the silence, in his view, is part of the strategy. No big announcements, just quiet accumulation. And then there's this. Willie brought up BlackRock's CEO, Larry Fink. Now, during a panel, someone asked Fink about BlackRock possibly working on an XRP-based ETF, one of those exchange-traded funds. And Fink's answer, I cannot say. Now, that's it. It's not a no, we're not interested, or a yes, we are. It is a coy, I cannot say. Now, if something isn't happening, usually these big shots just flat out simply deny it, right? But saying, I can't say, is a bit odd. To Willie, and a lot of the XRP enthusiasts that are out there, that came off as basically code for, we might be doing something, but I'm not allowed to talk about it. Almost a wink wink, nudge nudge moment. Now, connect all of these dots, and you get a pretty wild picture. Major banks and even funds like BlackRock quietly stacking XRP while telling the rest of the world that there's nothing to see here. huge chunks of XRP supply disappearing into what might be institutional vaults, and little hints that big products like ETFs are on the horizon, but it's all under wraps. Now, if you're an XRP holder, this stuff is equal parts exciting and just a little bit surreal. I mean, it's validation in a rather big way, like maybe we've been right all along about XRP having big potential. But it's also a bit like a wow, is this really happening behind closed doors? So, where could all of this lead? Willie used a pretty neat analogy that stuck with me. He likened the future XRP price move to a hydraulic pump or a pressure system. Picture Bitcoin and Ethereum then as big wide pipes with water, money, flowing on through them. Now picture XRP as a much narrower pipe. Now if you divert water from those big pipes into the smaller XRP pipe, what happens? Well, the pressure in the small pipe shoots way up. In plain language here, if money starts flowing out of Bitcoin or Ethereum and goes into XRP, the XRP price could explode upwards because it's a much smaller vessel, less market cap, less liquidity, so it doesn't take as much to actually make it surge. Now, he believes that the introduction of XRP ETFs will be like turbocharging that effect. ETFs mean more mainstream money can flow in, often quickly. And he also says the over-the-counter, the OTC, supply of XRP, that's kind of like the stash that big players use to trade large amounts off of the public market, is actually drying up too. So if big institutions suddenly want in and they can't get their usual mega batches from OTC, they'll likely be buying on the open market like everyone else does. And that is when prices can really squeeze upwards because there's just not enough XRP being sold cheaply to meet that demand. Now, here is where Willie's vision gets really bold. He's basically laughs off the notion that, XRP can't go too high because then its market cap would be ridiculous. He called that kind of thinking fallacious. Why? Because it doesn't, or at least he doesn't see XRP as just another payments token. He sees it as potentially taking on some of the biggest roles in global finance, roles currently played by the US dollar. Now, I know it sounds a little insane, but do hear it out. Willie suggests that XRP might one day function as a global reserve currency for trade, the way that the dollar does right now. He even kind of talked about something called RLUSD, which, if you haven't heard of, is Ripple's concept that's like a stablecoin representing a US dollar. In fact, it is Ripple's own native to the XRP ledger stablecoin. Now, he envisioned XRP and things like RLUSD being used instead of the US Treasury bills and bonds in some cases. In other words, countries settling trades with XRP or holding XRP-like assets instead of dollars. Now, if that ever happened, the numbers get astronomical. Now, Willie threw out the idea that XRP's total value, its market cap if you will, it could hit $100 trillion, and yes, that was with a T, as its role in global trade continued to grow. Now, let that sink in, right? Because $100 trillion is not a small number. That would mean that XRP is involved in so much of the world's money flow that its value dwarfs entire economies. Now, for context, even at around $2 a coin today, XRP's market cap may be $100 billion or so. So getting to $100 trillion would require XRP to be worth hundreds of dollars, or maybe even, depending on how much is circulating, thousands of dollars. It's mind-blowing claim. Now, is it even possible? Well, honestly, it might seem a little far-fetched today, but if you imagine a world where blockchain technology underpins every other transaction, who truly knows? The key point is that Willie is looking at XRP not as just a bank settlement token, but as a possible backbone of the financial system. Now, what really caught my attention is when he pointed out how the attitude of big banks towards Ripple and XRP has been changing. I remember a few years ago, right, when a lot of the banks and big financial names were like, crypto, yuck, no thanks. But specifically XRP. Like now, we're not doing that. We're going to build our own thing. Right now, according to Willie, those very same banks might be quietly ensuring that they have a seat at the XRP table now. He even hinted at firms like JP Morgan, which once upon a time might have seen, at least been seen as Ripple's maybe rivals, actually potentially using Ripple's technology in the future to save themselves billions on moving money around. Now, it is a classic story here, isn't it? The first, they kind of ignore you, then they laugh at you, and then they fight you, and then, well, they join you apparently. So, by this point, listening to all of this information, I'm torn, aren't I, between two different reactions here, because part of me is like, is this the part where I grab a tinfoil hat? But the other part of me, the part that's been in crypto for a while, is thinking, you know what, sometimes truth is stranger than fiction in this space. Now, it wouldn't be the first time that big players operate in secret only to reveal their hand later. Now, before we all get too carried away with daydreaming of Lamborghinis or accepting XRP as payment, let me drop in a quick reality check. Now, this might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses here, and this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Alright, so I'm glad that we got that out of the way because yeah, the last thing I want is anyone thinking that this is guaranteed or something like that, because it is not. Let's put on our skeptical hats here for just a second, because Willie is making some pretty huge claims, right? Are there other explanations for XRP's price being under $3? Absolutely. Maybe the market just isn't ready. Maybe regulatory issues like the whole SEC versus Ripple lawsuit that finally ended not too long ago kept big investors away until most recently. Right? Maybe those Coinbase outflows were just a bunch of retail traders, moving to self-custody, which a lot of people did after some exchanges got into trouble. And Larry Fink saying, "I can't say," might just be him playing coy or not wanting to spill the beans prematurely on anything. It doesn't 100% confirm an XRP ETF is coming from BlackRock. Critics have been quick to point out so far that we haven't seen a memo or a leaked email or any hard proof that Bank X and Ripple might have made some kind of secret pact. And they're right, there isn't any hard proof that we can point to here, just patterns and circumstantial evidence, and frankly, a few beliefs along the way. Now, the XRP community has long believed that XRP is undervalued and is destined for much bigger things. And this kind of narrative, it feeds into that idea and that belief. So, as a retail investor, like most of us are, how do I approach this? Well, personally, I like to stay open-minded, but not too gullible. Right? There's a big difference between saying, banks might be accumulating XRP, that's interesting, and XRP will definitely hit $1,000 because I saw someone on the internet say so. Now, I'm in the first camp there. I find this theory really intriguing. And I've seen enough wild stuff in crypto over the years not to dismiss it completely outright. But I'm not betting the house on it either. Let me put it this way. If banks are really suppressing XRP's price so that they can buy in cheaply, then that tells me two things. One, they see real value in XRP's future. Two, they don't want the average person to realize that until they've actually got their share of XRP. So if that is true, then it's almost like a bit of a warning to us retail investors, isn't it? Don't let go of your valuable assets just because they're moving sideways for a little while. Because if you do sell out of frustration, you might be selling to the very sharks who engineered the stagnation. On the flip side though, if this whole thing is bunk and, XRP is just chilling under $3 because, well, that's what the market thinks it's worth right now, well, then the warning is not to get sucked into every hyped up narrative. Now, I always find at least I should say, I always say, never invest more than you are willing to lose. And you know what? That holds true even if some dude on YouTube, like me or anyone else, is actually saying something different. Maybe is really excited about some kind of narrative. Now, I, within the cheeky crypto community, am adamant that we are on the right side of all of this. Now, speaking of people on YouTube, I do want to just pause right here for a second to let you guys know that there are some AI impersonators out there impersonating all of the cheeky crypto channels and a whole bunch of other crypto influencers. Now, here's the thing, right? What they are doing is there's a guy who's not showing his face. And what he is basically doing is downloading other people's content, like mine on this channel here, and then basically just passing it to an AI avatar, you know, a guy with glasses sat down in a beanbag chair, for example, and he's basically just reading my script here to you guys. And unfortunately, those videos are getting a fair bit of attention at the moment, and it is just theft from a lot of other people who are more legitimate in this space. So the word of warning to you guys, if you see a video that sounds just like this, chances are it might just be someone who has downloaded my video and stolen the script. So if you see anything like that, you can reach out to us in Discord, or you can just file a complaint against those videos. I personally think that this is just AI, modern AI theft. So just a word of warning, if you do see anything like that, chances are it is probably just an AI generated video from stolen content. But for more information, do join us in the Discord and we can obviously go ahead and take a look at that in more detail. Okay, now in my case here, I am holding a pretty decent bag of XRP and I do plan to continue holding it. Now, I'm not going to be day trading this. I'm just tucking it away and seeing what happens in the future. So if one day it does blast off because all of this stuff that we've talked about today, fantastic. And if not, well, I still believe in Ripple's technology and the problem that it is trying to solve. So I think there's a good chance that XRP will appreciate over time anyway as adoption continues to grow. But I will be managing my expectations. I'm not here to tell you that it's definitely going to be going to $10 or $100 or $10,000. I don't know what the future is. I don't have a crystal ball, and anyone who claims that they do is probably selling you something, which is why here at Cheeky Crypto, we believe in being more realistic about any potential price appreciation. Something that I do, and I recommend that others consider, is staying well informed and prepared. Follow what the big players are doing. Pay attention to news about institutional adoption. Watch those exchange balance reports. And if suddenly we hear about multiple XRP ETFs that are launching, or a central bank that is using XRP, or more exchanges running low on supply, well, those could all be signals that this rocket is preparing for liftoff. And at that point, it might be harder to get it at a good price. Also, community is key, right? These days, it's hard to shift through all of the noise on Twitter, right? Or X, or whatever we're going to be calling it these days, and various different forums all at the same time. That is why that we do have a free educational Discord, just for the cheeky crypto community. So we can help each other out and stay on top of all of these things. Now, if you haven't already joined the Cheeky Crypto Discord, the link is in the description down below. It's a chill place where we discuss news like this, share tips, do a little bit of education, and just hang out with like-minded crypto enthusiasts. Whether you're a newbie trying to learn the ropes or a seasoned trader looking for, camaraderie, you're welcome in there. And hey, sometimes we even get an early heads up on stuff just because we have so many eyes and ears in the community. That is what the CC community is all about. Now, shifting gears for just a second, I want to share something else that I have been exploring, because being in crypto isn't just about waiting for your coins to hit the moon. It's also about finding ways to grow your holdings and participate in new innovations. Now, some of you might have heard me talk about Unity nodes in previous videos. Now, this is a project by World Mobile and Minutes Network, and I've been really intrigued by it, and I did actually jump in. Essentially, it is a way to run a mini node on smartphones that actually help build a decentralized verification mobile network. And in return for your work on that node, you actually earn some crypto as a reward. Now, I won't be diving too deep into it here. We do have a whole set of other videos dedicated to Unity, by the way, but here's what I am personally doing. I did buy a Unity master node license. Basically, they issue those as NFTs, but basically it's a software license that grants you access to run these nodes. Now, my license actually allows me to connect up to 200 devices to their network. Am I setting up 200 mobile phones right away? No, I'm not. I'm starting off small. I'm starting with 10 phones to see how it all goes in practice. A bit of a test run. And if it is successful and as advertised on their website, then I might scale this up gradually. Now, what's really cool is I can choose to receive my rewards in different cryptocurrencies. Now, I've decided to have my Unity node rewards paid out in a mix of different assets, things like Bitcoin, Ethereum, ADA, XRP. The way that I see this is that those are the coins that I really do believe in the longer term, and I might as well accumulate more of them if this Unity thing generates a nice steady drip of those rewards. So it's kind of like staking or mining, but actually through providing this verification tasks to this mobile telecoms network with smartphones. It's a pretty novel concept. Now, of course, Unity nodes are not the main focus of this video today, but I mention it to illustrate that I'm always looking for ways to strengthen my position in the crypto space, whether it's holding assets that I believe in or using new platforms to earn even more of them. Now, if you're curious about Unity, I'm going to put some links in the description below for their light paper, the rewards calculator, so you can, do all the homework on this yourselves. As always, don't just jump in because, I'm or because some guy on YouTube's telling you about it. Make sure that it aligns with your own goals and your own risk tolerance, of course. Now, I've talked about Unity quite a bit before, so many of you guys probably know that I'm pretty bullish on the concept. But I'm also going to keep you all posted about my little experiment with 10 phones. Now, speaking of being prepared and finding opportunities, let's talk about exchanges for a second here. Because one lesson that I've learned, sometimes the hard way, is that in crypto, you need backup plans. Exchanges can get overloaded or even shut down when, there's a little bit of noise. And with very little notice too, especially during the crazy bull runs and volatile news events. That is why I always have accounts on multiple different exchanges to give myself flexibility. Now, I kind of treat this like having multiple different bank accounts, right? You won't put all of your money into one single account if you have millions, right? Same principle here. And on that note, I've actually partnered up with Kraken to offer you guys something pretty cool. If you're looking to fortify your exchange options, or even if you're just looking to snag some extra XRP, check this out. Kraken has a limited time promotion for new signups where if you use my link that you'll find in the description down below and you trade at least $100 worth of any cryptocurrency excluding stablecoins within the first 30 days of opening your account, you're going to get $25 worth of XRP credited to your new account. That's free XRP, basically as a thank you for getting started. I see this as a win-win. Right, you get another reputable exchange in your arsenal. Kraken is, of course, one of the OGs in this space, very secure and very reliable. And you get a little XRP bonus to pad out your bags. Just remember though, the link that's in the description, that's an affiliate link, meaning that Kraken will toss a little reward my way for referring you over there as well, which helps support the channel at no extra cost to you. Now, I always want to be very transparent about that. Now, all the details and the terms are going to be in the link in the description down below. It's very important that you do pay attention to all the terms and conditions for this particular promotion from Kraken, because not every jurisdiction around the world is going to be eligible. So do make sure you check out the fine print. Now, I've got everything organized in a description so that you can easily find it. So if you do take advantage of it, let me know. I love hearing when you guys actually benefit from these kind of deals, because honestly, I negotiate these partnerships with you, the community, in mind. And in this case, that's more XRP in your pocket plus another exchange account ready to go for the next bull run. That is just smart prepping, in my opinion. All right, let's bring all of this back home then. What is the big picture here? Well, for me, it's that famous motto, isn't it? Be fearful when others are greedy, and be greedy when others are fearful. Now, if what Dr. Willie says is true, then a lot of others, the big institutions, have been fearful about letting XRP's price run, which means maybe we should quietly be greedy and accumulate while it's low. And if it is not true, well, if there's no kind of grand scheme, then hey, at least we didn't fall for a trap and we stayed level-headed too. The story of XRP has always been a bit of a roller coaster, from being called a banker's coin to getting sued by the SEC, from insane price predictions to being written off as dead multiple times over. Yet here we are, still talking about it, and more importantly, still seeing developments all around it. The fact that we can even have a conversation about major banks possibly scheming over XRP is proof that this asset is on the radar in a rather big way. As a retail investor, I can't control what the whales and the institutions do, but what I can do is control my own strategy and my own knowledge, and knowledge is power. So whether XRP stays at $2 for another year or suddenly jumps to $5 or $10, I'll feel a lot more comfortable knowing why it's happening and having a plan for what I will do. My plan, in a nutshell, is to hodl some, stay well informed, explore new opportunities like Unity nodes, and make sure that I'm prepared for whatever comes. Hello, Kraken's promotional deal. That way, I'm covered whether this conspiracy is real or not. In closing, I want you to remember that the crypto world moves fast and can flip the script when you least expect it. Today's crazy theory could be tomorrow's headline. It might be fizzling out and maybe even forgotten. Either way, of course, I'm going to navigate it here on the channel with all of you guys. Now, you can do me a favor if you have found this informative, useful in some way, maybe even entertaining. Smash that like button, hit the subscribe, and I will catch you all in the next one.